So there's a video from someone named Jose. It's Jose's diary, and it's a new video on YouTube. It came out yesterday, and I believe the name of it is "Where Are All the Wise People At?" And through the video, she discusses this as far as with age should come wisdom. Where are the wise people at? She's 18, and she does not get along with many people who are teens, 20s, and she mentions even 30s. Now, I know a lot of us have experienced this. I experienced this before the age of 10. I noticed that people like my parents were very immature, and even growing up, I see a lot of people are very immature, and I want to explain what happened here. First, it's important to understand the societal norms have a great effect on the psyche. And after the Great Generation, they fought very hard for wealth for this country so their children would have a better life. And those children were the boomers. And their lives were significantly easy. Money was being thrown at them all the time for minimal work and, in many cases, no work. What was considered risk to them is it's just incredible what was considered risk to them. They would be back up in their feet significantly quickly, very fast. I mean, their lives were so easy. A lot of them could work in restaurants and fast food and own a full blown house, which today would be considered a mansion, two cars, have a full family, and still be putting money away. Things were really booming for them. And with this came a lack of needing to mature because maturity comes with struggle. Struggle is what leads to, it is what forces one to have to figure things out. Having to figure out life and how to figure out how to get through hard times without being bailed out. That is where wisdom comes from. It's life experience. And you'll find a lot of people today completely lack life experience. Now, there are people like me. I was beaten every day as a child. I was not allowed to go to school. I was told I was stupid. I had a stupid look on my face. I looked so dumb. This was by my mom all the time. And then my dad would come home and just beat the shit out of me every day for no reason. It was a very terrible life. Because of this, also I lived in Southern California. Being a white male in Southern California, where they're hated due to white male boomers, um, it was very difficult for me to have to figure out how to make money and take care of myself without education. You see, with education is not knowledge; it's more connections than anything else. And it did close the opportunity for me to get education through any type of schooling. This led to a lot of hardship, a great deal of struggle. I'm 43 years old and I never got to enjoy life. I've never enjoyed it. I never been in a place where I could just leave and go on a vacation. Um, the lifestyle that I was stuck with, not that I chose, is to go after corrupt government, corrupt officials, and I stand up for innocent people. This came from maturity. This came from wisdom. Um, I have found that those around me that have backgrounds that are similar, as far as struggle, has also they've also obtained wisdom, even if they do not have a high IQ. Wisdom comes from struggle. The way you handle people, the way you deal with things. Um, a lot of foreigners are very good. They have good character when they come to the United States because they see the opportunity here. Seeing the opportunity here comes from a place that has a lack of opportunity. A place with a lack of opportunity is struggle. Another thing to take into account is boomers introduced um, a lot of childish ways, a lot of substance abuse, just doing what feels good at the moment, just having sex because it feels good at the moment. And with this, society changed and started flocking to, oh, well, I earned this, I earned that, I earned this, I earned that. Throughout the day, we always think that we earned an unhealthy treat or instant satisfaction or instant gratification when we simply haven't. This entitlement, as far as a childish, narcissistic behavior, has embedded itself in our society so strong that it overwhelmingly took over the internet. And now, today, due to losing the ways of the great generation and generations before them and being introduced to this lazy entitlement ways of boomers, along with instant gratification from marketing all the time, along with all the screen time and the damage it has to neural pathways and mental development being handed to children. This has led to the older, wiser people not being wiser, just being older. You'll notice that there are a lot of people, especially in Western culture today, in America, that will be 40s, 50s, 60s, even older, that have a very whininess, entitlement, crybaby, narcissistic way about them. And you will just look at them and be shocked by their age. They should know better. They should act their age, but they're simply not capable. This is what has happened to society in order for there to no longer be wise people. I've seen those who believe that they're. Oh, I hate it when the camera does this. I've seen people act and think that they're wiser, older people, and they're simply not. They're just on drugs and they view themselves that way. And you will notice that there will be a great deal of people that view themselves as being the old wise person, and they're not. For example, my ex father in law, I was married. It was a terrible, terrible, terrible marriage, very abusive. She was very abusive and very hostile towards me, and it was just awful. But I remember her dad, and he was a boomer. He was not Gen X. Because I'm Gen X, she is my ex-wife is Gen X. So therefore, our parents were boomers, not great generation or anything. We got stuck with boomers, which was very difficult, especially white boomers. This gentleman was bragging about how great and fantastic he was, and he had no skill, he had no life experience, but he really viewed himself as something. And one thing he said was basically it was like old swordsman or something like that is grew old for a reason. And of course, the concept behind this saying, I think it's one of these Asian sayings, is even though the person's old, they make their living in combat. So when you approach them, don't take them for granted just because you see their age and you think they're going to be old and frail. They're not. They reach that age in their profession for a reason. And with him, with a lot of these boomers, it just doesn't count. With a lot of these boomers, it's simply because they were taken care of. They were taken care of, and now they view themselves as, um, what do you call it? Not accomplishing life. Um, they view themselves as, boy is pointing like all the way out the window now just to barely get conquering life. Um, they view themselves as conquering life and brag about their age as though they have succeeded in something and they haven't. They were living off of their parents' wealth. They took out loans on their children, their grandchildren, and even their great grandchildren, and left nothing for us but a destroyed planet, no innovation, a great deal of debt. And these people view themselves really as something. But I'll tell you this, the boomers outside of that, the boomers that did struggle, the boomers that did actually have to fight, and they were aware of their colleagues, other boomers. With these people, you will find wisdom, but they're very few. A lot of people, as far as black people, I see a lot of wisdom with them. I see a lot of kindness and generosity and understanding. You know, it will be like that with a lot of minorities. And I want you to notice today with women, you'll notice a lot of women, their behavior is very different than before. You'll notice that white male boomer mentality. And this has come from the entitlement, the extra privileges that that group has gotten. Before it was just white male boomers, and now it's basically a full gender. And again, this has to do with the way that society treats them. And we will see a lot of women in the future. Like that's why very few women that are actually confident in themselves and secure with who they are will not get along with a lot of other women because a lot of other women are so unnatural. Um, this is how we felt towards these entitled white male boomers. This is what's happened with wisdom, or the lack of wisdom. This is what's happened, or this is what led to people basically living a life of foolishness and immaturity. And they've gotten stuck in it. And then they start teaching their other generations this. And now every generation does not feel that they have to work for a living. They all feel like they're entitled to the boomer lifestyle, you know, where everything is just handed to them. You will hear a struggle of a boomer, even one that might be a minority, and be like, wow, I wish my life was that easy. Is that how difficult it was for a minority within the boomer generation? That's remarkable. You just had to stand up a little bit, and you just had to get a basic job, and bam, set for life, wealth. But that's what's happened. Now we need to reset humanity. And we, this generation, as far as people in their 40s, unfortunately, Gen X is not doing well. Right after that, millennials really not doing well. And the thing is one of these generations, I tried to capture it as quick as I could. You know, I worked really hard. I do have another law that just passed yesterday in California for renters' rights. I was calling them up like crazy and was able to make that difference despite not never going to school in my life. It is that effort of standing up and contacting people, trying to make that difference. We need to make that difference for the next generations. We need to learn. We need to be the few of the wise ones that can be there for them, because today, again, this woman said that she was 18 years old, very young. That generation right now has a significant drop in IQ. They're very erratic in their behaviors, and they're very destructive, self-destructive, because they have had no parents to guide them. Their parents have taken pride in destroying them and having them use profanity and flip kids off instead of learning to self-regulate and how to be a human being. There are very few human beings left. We have a very anti-human being mindset now. So it's important for us to put things like this out there, put videos out there. Um, because one of these generations, we're still just falling as humanity, as a human as a human species. We're still falling, and one of these generations is going to have to stop, catch it, and bring it back up to the point where there's a little bit of dignity left, because we've fallen far. We've fallen far. I've seen people in their 20s with the common sense and maturity of probably a 7-year-old because of the effects of past generations on them, the refusal of parenting and guiding, and the destructive nature that social media and the internet has on the psyche that was given to them by their parents, the very people who were supposed to protect them from that, but they're lazy. But basically, that is what's happened when it comes to wisdom and the lack of wisdom, and we can catch it. We can catch it. Um, we can recover from it, but it's going to take a lot of effort. Unfortunately, on this girl's part, 18-year-olds, Gen X, we saw this coming, and a lot of them, I was one of the very few who fought so hard. I mean, I've got a lot of trouble. I've been labeled very poorly by society for fighting against human trafficking and corrupt government, and it destroyed my life. And the reason why is because there's not enough of us fighting for common sense good things like that. And once we get a generation where there's enough people willing to stand up within that generation, then wisdom will start to come back. But unfortunately, they're going to have to start from scratch. They're going to have to educate themselves with the great philosophers, with basic education on engineering and all the stuff, and the great sciences, and they're going to have to do everything themselves because there's no one there to teach the younger generation anymore. Even the professors and the teachers out today are some of the most oddly ignorant people. Berkeley Law School is a great example. I know it sounds funny, but it's true. That actually used to be known as a great law school, and now today, it's been known as a joke for over a decade now. And you look at that and you think it started somewhere. That doesn't just happen. That started somewhere. And it started from so much of society being lacking wisdom that sooner or later the standard dropped down to the point where this type of foolishness is considered acceptable. So I'm so sorry that, my generation didn't fix it. Millennials, I worked with millennials back when they were only a few years apart. When I saw millennials working with them at the airport and they were 18 years old, I was shocked by their stupidity and lack of common sense. It was terrifying. And they knew that this was going to happen to the younger generation, the people who were born like after 9/11, and just no one cared enough to do anything. No one cared enough to do with anything. Again, boomers, like my dad said, that um, they live the life and they screw over the next generation. It was done to the boomers, which it wasn't. And then they'll do it to the next generation, us, and then we'll do it to the next generation. And it's like, that's not true at all. But anyway, this video was a lot of babbling, and I apologize about that. If you made it through this, I'll be impressed.